We're talking to Dr. LMadu, and the topic is the Sudan Revisited. And of course, Dr. Madu, before we had our first commercial break, you were telling us about the agreement that has been reached between the Sudanese army and the SPLA. Now, let's push that a little further, Dr. Madu, and to have you to identify what you consider to be the most important issues. I think most people think in terms of the religious issue, the conflict between the Christians and the Arabs, and et cetera. But what would you consider to be the most important issue, and why you would consider these issues to be important?
Both issues are important. When most people hear about the conflict in the Sudan, they see the religious side of the conflict. The Muslims, in the north, trying to impose their religion on the Christians on the south. But the racial dynamics of the conflict is even stronger than the religious side. For example, you hear of Darfur conflict. Yeah, those people in Darfur are predominantly Muslims, but they are black. The Nuba Mountains, those people are also Muslims, but also blacks. They are still being persecuted despite their religion. So the racial side of the conflict is probably stronger than the Islamic component of the conflict. The Arab northerners still refer to the blacks in the south as slaves. They use the word Abid, A-B-I-D, to refer to blacks. So it's more of a racial conflict in a way than even a religious conflict. And that's why, even with the agreement, saying that the Southern Sudanese will have 6 years to decide, if they want to be independent from the Sudan or see part of the Sudanese, entity. From my own experience, I'm talking to the leaders of the Southern Sudanese political movement. I think they want independence, straightforward.
Straightforward.
That's what they believed since 1950s, and that's what they still believe now. So I think the 6-year period, during which a referendum will be held, will be probably a time for the Southern Sudanese to put the infrastructures, necessary for an independent state. When John Garang came here, when I met him, he actually, in his speech, said that he was going ahead to print his own money.
He was in Nashville here.
Yes, yes, he was in Nashville here to speak to the Sudanese community. And he said that he was in the process of printing his own money for the Southern Sudanese people. I've spoken to some members of his movement who said, yes, he has printed the money, but he has not been distributed. Recently, the the Sudanese government said, well, they're going to print some new, denominations to show the unity of the Sudan, which is fine. But I still think the Southerners need, to have their own state. For example, okay, the 1972 agreement was abrogated by Nimeri, Okay, suppose somebody takes over tomorrow in the Sudan and say, okay, hey, the agreement of January 9, we don't want it. Tear it up again, they go back to fighting. Okay, and so most Sudanese just don't want to go through that cycle again. They just want this to be the end. 6 years, we want to be independent. And I think that's what...
And you think that would be the best solution to the kind of issue, that situation that most of them find themselves in?
Absolutely. I think that would be the ideal solution to this conflict. A lot of our governments, particularly in the Arab world, do not want that to happen. Egypt does not want the Southern Sudan to become independent.
No, why would not Egypt want
Because of control of the waters of the Nile. The first agreement, called the Machakos Agreement, that was signed, was torpedoed on the insistence of President Mubarak of Egypt. So there's a lot of problems.
You say control of the water of the Nile. Explain.
That flows through Southern Sudan to Egypt.
And the Southern Sudanese can really control that water, can cut that water off if they so desire?
Of course. A lot of the conflicts in this world has been, who controls what. For example, there's a strait, the Straits of Bab el Mandeb, that goes through Eritrea. And so that's one of the reasons why the U.S. was supporting the Haile Selassie government to make sure that place is not controlled by the Arabs, because that strait leads to the Israeli ports of Eilat and Haifa. So the same here, the Arab governments in the north do not want those waters of the Nile to be under the control of any southern government. And that's very important to understand. So a lot of the Arab governments do not want the Southern Sudanese to become a state of its own. So that would be a problem.
Well, you know, you mentioned earlier that a number of individuals who are from Sudan in this country. What has been the attitude of those individuals in reference to this new accord?
Very happy. A lot of them are very happy, but they're skeptical about the implementation. And naturally, I don't blame them. This has happened so many times before. But most of them think, you know, independence would be the best way of, you know, living with the Sudan. For example, after the agreement was signed, the capital of the Southern Sudan is in Juba. But John Garang and his group cannot go to Juba, so they've set up a capital in a place called Rumbek. The reason why they cannot go back to Juba is that the Sudanese government still has an army in Juba, and also there's a Southern Sudanese Defense Forces, a paramilitary group created by the government in Sudan as a counter to the SPLA. You see, there are about 10 to 15,000 armed men there. That has to be taken care of. Now the agreement says, well, give us 1 year to be able to work out some with these people, you know, in Juba before you can, you know, Garang and his men to go. So that would be an obstacle. And these are 10 to 15,000 men. Either, you know, you demobilize them, or they become part of the SPLA or part of the government army. So it's going to be a very big problem. Now the temporary capital of the south in Rumbek, a town of less than 100,000 people, doesn't have anything. In fact, the only hospital there has 1 doctor and a few nurses. And that's this, so they have to build all the way from the scratch.
Well, now, do you think, and of course, as we make preparations for the second commercial break here, I think we've got about a minute before that, but when we come back, I want you to talk about how the Sudanese government feels in reference to this agreement. Now, I know that you said that the accord has been reached, but now some of the things that you're indicating now is that that they might be trying to undermine the entire accord before you reach that window of opportunity, that 6-year window of opportunity, so that when that comes, they will be able to really take control over the situation and remove the PLA from becoming involved in that. You understand what we're saying?
There's a phrase used by the northern Arabs saying, Akut al-Abid, Bil Abid. Kill the slave through the slave.
Okay, and of course we'll talk about that when we come back following this very, very short commercial break. The topic is the